everybody? It is Wednesday, my dudes. Welcome to my living room. Welcome to the Sweat presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Latzia, asking the hard-hitting questions like over or under. What's your favorite bet? And who will you roster? We're taking trips to the NFL, the NHL. I see you, Gary, and PGA TOUR coming up. But first, after taking Tuesday off for Election Day, the NBA is back at near full strength. So we have a 12-game slate featuring plenty of stars in action. Please keep in mind, though, the Dallas-Orlando game is not on the main slate tonight because that has been moved up to a 5:30 start time due to Tropical Storm Nicole. So let's gather some DFS and sportsbook plays from DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne here, DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya, RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Best guard to roster on DraftKings tonight, Gare Bear. Who is it?
I'm going to start with Fred VanVleet, who might just be about $1,000 underpriced, considering Pascal Siakam's just not playing for the foreseeable future. VanVleet's already had 2 games this season where Siakam was not available. He's averaging 28.5 points and 51 DraftKings points in those 2 games. For the season without Siakam on the court, he's averaging 1.27 DraftKings points per minute. And we know the book on Fred VanVleet when he's available. Nick Nurse is going to play him somewhere between 36 to 42 minutes every single game. So all of the things that he's personally bringing to the table are very, very good tonight. And then you have an amazing matchup, maybe even the best matchup you could ask for in the Houston Rockets, who come into this game ranking 7th in the NBA in pace with the 3rd worst defensive rating. They're giving up over 116 points per 100 possessions. So just seems like a really good matchup for anyone on the Raptors. And I think VanVleet, again, without Siakam, is too cheap at just $8,100.
Chinmay, who's got a good matchup at guard tonight?
I really like Terry Rozier from the Hornets, 7,800. So you're not paying up quite as much as you would for some of the top guards. Averaging about 35 DK fantasy points over the last 2 games coming back from that ankle injury. But I really like the high shot volume that he has. And with LaMelo Ball still out, Gordon Hayward still out, Rozier's going to take most of the shots here for Charlotte. And eventually the percentages will normalize. He's been highly inefficient as he's come back from that ankle injury. But as he gets healthier, as he starts getting more into the groove of this offense, I think the scoring will go up because the percentages will be better. And that results in more fantasy points for a guy who should have plenty of volume.
Nick, how much cash you spending at guard tonight?
Well, a decent amount. I mean, there's so many options. I mean, you got like 10 guys to choose from who are north of 9K. I'm closely watching the status of Trae Young. If he doesn't play in this game, that makes me like DeJounte Murray even more. He's at 9,600, but those guys have been able to coexist even when healthy this season. I mean, DeJounte Murray has been way better than I expected. I thought he would take a fairly significant step back after being the number 1 guy on a bad Spurs team. But if anything, I think he's playing better than he was last season. I mean, the 3-point volume is up. The assists are there. The rebounds are there. He's still racking up a ton of steals every single night. And I know Utah is technically the number 1 team in the West. I still don't view that as a bad matchup, certainly, for Atlanta. They are at home in this game as well. So a lot to like tonight about DeJounte Murray, again, pending the status of Trae Young.
Chinmay, let's get beefy. Between all of the guys you see available tonight at forward and center, which one sits atop your DFS rankings?
I think this one is the no-brainer here where you're going to spend up. I think Kevin Durant, even though he's at 11K, is an absolute no-brainer here. Kyrie Irving is still out, still suspended. You got a Knicks rivalry matchup with the Nets, and Durant has just been playing insane minutes over the last 5 games. It's kind of ridiculous at this point, but they really need him to keep going, to have a shot in this thing. And it comes down to who's going to take the most shots on this team, who's going to get the ball in key situations, and who's going to be handling most of the playmaking offensively. It's Durant. I just think he's going to have tremendous numbers once again because the Nets really have nobody else when Irving's off the floor to do all that stuff. So give me KD, even if it's at a high price point.
Who do you want, Nick?
I like the Durant call. I mean, I would consider Jason Tatum as well. He's actually averaging more fantasy points per game than Kevin Durant this season. He's been fantastic. I think both of those guys have pretty similar floors at this point. I mean, you're basically saying like worst case scenario is like 45 DraftKings points out of those guys. And you're saving the $700 there with Jason Tatum. I'm looking at DeMar DeRozan against the Pelicans. Positionally, that's a decent matchup. Although I think the Pelicans are probably a better team than that would imply. And I also wouldn't mind, going all the way down if you want to save a little bit of money here. Desmond Bane of the Memphis Grizzlies, they're at the Spurs tonight. That's a top 10 matchup for the position. He's priced at 7,700. I think Desmond Bane continues to fly under the radar, but one of those guys that by the end of the year, I think is going to be right there in the most improved player debate.
Yeah, Tatum early MVP candidate has now cleared 50 DK points on 6 occasions too this season. Gary, and who do you like at forward or center?
Yeah, I was really drawn towards Tatum. I think the Durant-Tatum debate is interesting, but I do think I have to give Tatum the upper hand just because of that price discrepancy like Nick was talking about. He should probably be entering that like 11K or at least high 10K tier. And 10-3 seems like a pretty nice price for someone who's shown what he's shown so far this season, averaging well over 30 points per game. He's at 1.41 DraftKings points per minute. That's sort of where he was hovering around the second half of last season as well. And I think sort of the sneaky underlying thing with Tatum right now, because, this is a pretty lopsided matchup on paper. There's obviously the potential for a blowout here, especially with this game in Boston. Tatum's been just playing all the time. Like he is always on the court for the Celtics this season. His last 4 games, he's averaging 38.9 minutes per game. That is the second highest mark of any player in the NBA. So maybe this script gets a little wonky, although I do think the Pistons have looked slightly better the last week than they did the first 2 weeks of the season. But if this game's close, Tatum's suddenly one of those guys who's playing 40 minutes a game. So considering his efficiency and his just overall ceiling, I think that's a very tempting combination.
Yeah, Gary, and the Pistons have been vulnerable to power forwards really since the start of the season too. Like Detroit is surrendering an Eastern Conference high 33.7 offensive efficiency rating to 4s like on the floor. So it seems like a great pick there by you guys. A dozen games to choose from again here, dudes. A lot of value on this slate. So who would you recommend rostering as a value play, Nick?
I'm looking at the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm noticing that Drew Holiday is doubtful to play in this game tonight. I think Milwaukee is hopeful that they could get this win without Holiday. They've already beat the Oklahoma City Thunder over the weekend without Giannis, so I think they feel good about this matchup. And with that being the case, you kind of have a choice, I think, between Grayson Allen at 4,600 or Javon Carter at 3,900. I think both of those guys are going to probably end up playing north of 30 minutes in this game. I think Grayson Allen has maybe a slightly higher floor, but honestly, these guys have been pretty close thus far this season. Javon Carter's been starting most games for Milwaukee. He's already played 26 and 31 minutes in the last 2 games, put up 24 and 26 DraftKings points. So I think with no Drew Holiday tonight, presumably, they could be looking at a 30-plus point ceiling for Javon Carter. And getting that kind of upside at 3,900, I think, is a great deal.
Gary, and who stands out to you as a rock-solid value play tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I had Javon Carter written down, someone who's played over 25 minutes already the past 2 times the Bucks have played. I would also say, you look at Drew Holiday, he's doubtful right now. So that's a little bit more definitive than someone like Chris Paul, who's just questionable. But I'd be pretty surprised to see Phoenix force the issue with their ancient point guard, but still very important point guard. I don't think Paul plays tonight against the Timberwolves. And if that's the case, Cameron Payne becomes also a very easy sort of plug and play at point guard or shooting guard. He's just $4,300. But those 2 teams, particularly if, again, Chris Paul is ruled out, I think you just take the guy who's probably going to start at point guard.
Chinmay, who are you looking at for value?
Yeah, I think Grayson Allen is the play here. He's been doing really well even with Drew Holiday on the floor. That's because Chris Middleton hasn't played for the Bucks for most of the season. So with Holiday off the floor, I think Allen is going to be the guy who's going to get more shots, going to have more ball handling opportunities, even with Javon Carter in there. I really like Allen at 4,600. I think that's an easy value play. Another guy I mentioned the Hornets earlier, but Jalen McDaniels has been getting heavy minutes as well, and he's one to watch as well with Gordon Hayward out. So those are 2 guys that I would like on as far as value plays.
Gary, and let's go to the DK Sportsbook here. Which underdog would you back tonight to pull off an upset?
I'd be lying if I said I didn't stare at the Jazz for a really long time, just because of what we've seen so far this season. I couldn't pull the trigger. I'm going to say the Bulls. I'm kind of shocked by this line. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I understand there's still some like preseason buzz, especially on the books surrounding the Pelicans, but they've been fine. They haven't been amazing so far this season. I think the Bulls in particular, you look across their last 5 games, they've got the 3rd best defensive rating in all of basketball. Patrick Williams is a big part of that. I think they're sort of starting to come into their own. And obviously they're a different team when Zach LaVine's available. They're 4-2 at home so far this season. I just think these two teams are very similar. And the fact that the Bulls are underdogs at home is a little jarring to me. So I'll jump on that opportunity and take them at plus 110 on the money line.
All right, Chinmay, whose money line you like? Give me an underdog.
I like the Bulls. I think that's a really good play, especially with LaVine coming back in. They are a totally different team with him on the floor, and he's the guy who has been able to get buckets and heat up at times early in the season. So Chicago's a good play. Utah's a tempting one, but I do think Trae Young, that injury situation is what's going to swing that one for me. If he doesn't play, I think the Jazz are a good option. I also do like the Lakers tonight. I think they played really well against the Clippers the first time out. Kawhi is still out for the Clippers, so don't really know what's going on there. LeBron got a day off on Monday, so he should be more fresh. Anthony Davis looks like the back injury is starting to wane for him, so he looks like he's going to play high minutes again. I like Los Angeles or the Lakers in that Battle of LA tonight. I think that's another play late on the slate that you can get.
Nick, what about the Knicks here, man? Like, come on. Kevin Durant can't keep doing it all by himself every night.
Yeah, there's a case to be made there. I certainly don't trust the Knicks, but I also don't think the Nets are a good team. I mean, getting 3 points with the Knicks in what's technically a road game, but not really. Just going a few minutes across the river there. I don't know. I'm kind of looking at Suns Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves have been extremely difficult to trust. They've already had like 3 really bizarre press conferences post game this year. Most recently, Anthony Edwards calling the entire team soft on Monday. We'll see if that galvanizes everybody, before this game. But I think particularly if Chris Paul does not end up playing, he left their last game with a heel injury. Doesn't sound like it's too serious, but if he doesn't play, I think the Suns are a completely different team. They ended up scoring only 88 points against Philly in that game that Chris Paul departed in the second quarter. This is a really, really shallow team. They're really dependent on their top 4 or 5 guys. You take Chris Paul away, all of a sudden, you're asking Cameron Payne to do a lot. So, I would wait and see for sure on Chris Paul's status. But if he doesn't play, I think this is actually a good spot for Minnesota at home.
Yeah, they get Rudy Gobert back tonight.
They do.
Yeah,
they do. Awesome. Cool. That'll only help them on the defensive side. Slate approved pick, gentlemen. What's your best bet on the board tonight? Jim may start us off.
I like the total on Blazers Hornets to go over 219. I think it is low because these teams haven't scored a lot of points to begin the season. But I think a big reason for that is just their guys haven't been healthy. The Blazers have missed Damian Lillard for most of the year, and the Hornets don't have, Rozier, LaMelo Ball, and Gordon Hayward for a decent amount of time. So I think these guys are coming back. Everyone should be in except for Ball and Hayward, obviously. But I think both teams, have struggled a bit defensively of late. I like this total to go over. It's a relatively low number as well, which helps. So Charlotte, Portland to go over 219, I think is a strong play.
Nick, your best bet tonight.
I'm taking a big number. I'm going the Raptors. Even without Siakam, they're at home. Houston, to me, has looked like the worst team in the league so far. It's not a good team. Jabari Smith is really struggling these last few games. I mean, if they want to win games, they need players like Jabari Smith to step up. I don't love the Kevin Porter, Jalen Green combination. I think those are, it's kind of, both of those guys remind me of Monte Ellis in bad ways. And I think Toronto is they're one of those teams that you could take out any of those key guys. As long as they're not missing 2 or more, they're just going to be really, really good. Everybody could kind of pick up the slack. Scotty Barnes is a triple-double threat every night at this point. Gary Trent feels like he's taken another step forward. They have a ton of random big guys who they can just plug in. Christian Koloko is playing big minutes for them all of a sudden. I think they're the type of team that just doesn't get tripped up in these situations by bad teams like Houston.
Yeah, Gary loves hearing you back, Toronto.
I just love another member of the Christian Koloko hive. We're always looking for membership. I'm going to take a player prop here. Bojan Bogdanovic over 2.5 3-pointers made. Tough matchup against the Celtics, granted. But he's had a fairly easy time clearing this number so far this season. Hasn't done it in his last 2 games, but started the season by going over 2.5 made threes in 8 of his first 9 games. He's really been a high volume 3-point shooter. And as we know, for the past half decade, he's also a very high efficiency 3-point shooter. He's definitely going to put up the shots, and I think more than likely 3 go in.
All right, you guys were awesome, man. Appreciate it. Your job here is done. We're turning our attention to the NFL and a fun little game of over or under with Jeff and Pierce after this break. All right. We're live. We are live. Jeff and Pierce, hold on a second. I have a great intro that I wrote. So week 9 in the NFL had some interesting results, right? Double-digit spreads, not working out for many heavy favorites out there, and some toss-up games becoming lopsided dominations. But we have more in week 10. More unpredictability on the menu. That game kicks off. Week 10 kicks off with the game between the Falcons and Panthers tomorrow. So, yes, punch up Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich for me, please. We have a thrilling game of over or under coming at you. So, tomorrow night, division-leading Atlanta. Not kidding. They're tied with Tampa Bay, best division in football, visiting Carolina. These two played a 37-34 thriller just 2 weeks ago, back in week 8. These passing yards props for both quarterbacks, Jeff, they're gross. Mariota's 163.5. PJ Walker, 183.5. Which one is going over, Jeff?
Neither is going over. And I'm not being facetious. These are just the trappiest trap lines that ever trapped. They're just begging people to take the over here with these lines. They're saying, please, good God, take the overs on these quarterbacks. You're not going to do it. Marcus Mariota is probably going to pass the ball 15 times in this game. The Carolina Panthers' rush defense has regressed. They've allowed 6 yards per carry over the last 3 games. Atlanta's going to run the ball. They got Tyler Algier averaging 10 yards per carry. They got Cordell Patterson back in the red zone. Mariota might pass the ball like 10 times in this game because he's not going to have to do anything. He'll just take off with his legs. I don't even want to get into PJ Walker. I don't know how he got over 300 yards in the last game. He still only completed 50% of his passes. Needed a couple long passes to get there and overtime. What did he have, 17 yards last week? The Panthers
Baker Mayfield was the better quarterback last week.
Well, right, but they're not. That's the point. They're not going to put in Baker Mayfield because they're tanking, and they know PJ Walker's terrible. Even against a bad secondary, I don't think he's going to get there. Give me the under on both these guys.
Also, dude, like your mic is not linked up correctly right now. We're getting the computer audio. I know like you were having like a mic thing like beforehand. So just try to fix that while Pierce answers
right now.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Pierce, which quarterback is going to go over? And are you on the side of Jeff here that it's neither one?
No, I'll go on the opposite side. I think both of them can go over this number. I know it doesn't sound that – I mean, honestly, this is not an appealing game on paper. These are not appealing teams to really want to back, especially these quarterbacks. And Jeff's right that Arthur Smith and the Falcons love to run the ball. All they want to do is run the ball. It would make a lot of sense for them to just go in and conservatively get their rushing yards, get their win, and get out of Carolina. But I don't think it's just that easy. It still is the NFL. The Panthers are a terrible team, but you're not just going to go into Carolina and do exactly what you want. Everything's going to go as scripted. If that were the case, then they wouldn't have found themselves in a 60-point shootout the last time they played the Panthers. They're going to have to pass a little bit. Mariota's going to get over it. And yeah, we don't really know what to expect from PJ Walker. He had a terrible game against the Bengals, but in the 2 games before that, he looked pretty good. He looked halfway decent. He's able to move the ball some. I don't really want to go anywhere near this. I would take the over. The number that I would really like is betting the Falcons to cover the spread. Falcons always beat the Panthers. And I imagine that Carolina Stadium is going to be half Falcons fans. It's going to be filled with Atlanta. Carolina's had trouble filling their stadium all season. Opposing teams have filed in pretty easily, and Atlanta's just down the road. This is going to be basically another home game for Atlanta. And for the division leaders that want to be favored by 3 points against the team that's tanking, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, Falcons.
Emerson?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Am I
Oh,
back?
you sound
Good.
good. You sound
We're
good.
back.
You sound good. Also, like the Falcons, first time I believe they've been a road favorite this season, but they have covered in 3 of their 4 road games on the year thus far. So that's a nice little bet you've dished out there, Pierce. You haven't had many bets hit recently, including Monday night, right?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah.
All right, guys. We got the Bucks. The Bucks are going to be rooting for Carolina tomorrow night. Meanwhile, Tom Brady and Tampa Bay, they're going to be taking on Pierce's surprising Seahawks. This is a team riding a 4-game win streak behind Kenneth Walker and then the only active NFL Hall of Famer, Geno Smith. This game is going down in Germany, though. So we're going to have some Sunday morning football. The total in Germany on the DK Sportsbook sits at 44.5. Over or under that, Pierce?
I'll take the under. It's just usually the safest bet to go under on these games overseas. Seattle scoring points. 4 of the last 5, they scored 27 points or more, so the offense looks pretty good, and I'm not really worried. Geno's playing great. The receivers are playing great, and they've got some depth. They could actually have some tight ends and wide receivers develop and become even more potent. We know that the offensive line is gelling, and then obviously, as you mentioned, Ken Walker looks like a stud. And even Travis Homer's playing halfway decent. They're going to get their points, but is Tampa going to score? Tampa's not putting any points on the board. Yeah, they rebounded last week, but they had lost 5 of 6. They're not doing anything offensively. Seattle is 4th in sacks. As we all know, if you put pressure on Tom Brady, that's how you beat him, especially this season. He's not getting sacked because he just doesn't want to get hit. So it's even worse than before. Like when he gets sacked in the past, he couldn't complete passes. Now he's just, gun shy back there, quickly releasing passes to receivers that aren't open. I just don't think Tampa's going to hold up their end of the bargain and get the points on the board.
All right, Jeff, I believe the trend with more of these international games more often than not is the under, right?
Yeah, and what was that? And
we're gonna dogs are wrestling.
I'm gonna agree with Pierce here. Fade the bloated Tom Brady total here. Go with the under on the 44.5. Tampa's 2-7 to the over this year. Seattle's only 5-4 to the over. I mean, people have this idea of Seattle from early in this year because they got in a couple shootouts where their defense just allows a ton of points. That really hasn't been the case. Both of these teams are actually pretty solid red zone defenses as well. Tampa only is 5th in yards per play allowed. So, Seattle as an offense have been good, but they actually haven't been good in the red zone. And I don't know if the big plays are going to be there against Tampa for them. I expect kind of Seattle to take the lead at some point and then just sit on Ken Walker and just grind out some kind of like 2017 win here. I just don't think that this is necessarily the spot in Germany for Tom Brady and guys to start getting it going here. Again, like you got Leonard Fournette, 2.3 yards per carry over the last 2 games. I mean, I just don't know where the offense necessarily is going to come from. Neither of these teams have been efficient, again, like scoring in the red zone. So, this total just seems too big. I'm still surprised that it's 44.5. But again, it's the Brady factor. No one wants to get a bet against him. So the total stays at a relatively big number. It's a good under.
Yeah, and also throwing in the fact there just hasn't been a ton of points really as of late in Buccaneers games. So average total of 35.2 points over last 5 games. So the under does seem to make a lot more sense. Let's go to, we mentioned it earlier this week. It's the only game of the week between teams that have winning records right now. So it's going to pair up the Vikings and Bills. Only game of the week with teams with winning records in week 10. This total is down to 45. Maybe, Jeff, it's because of news of like Josh Allen is dealing with a UCL sprain, his throwing arm, but reports this morning say that it's not considered a major injury, and it is something he is expected to play through. So over or under this total?
Yeah, I'm going to go under this as well. There's a couple different factors here to take note of. But I'd really like the under on this one. I'm not going to lie. The Allen issue is something. I mean, he's definitely going to be playing through pain. It's not great. That's not what necessarily the biggest concern is. 15-mile-per-hour winds forecasted. That's in the range where it starts affecting players' downfield passing. Again, like we have Steph Diggs and Justin Jefferson going up against each other, but like if they're negated a little bit by the wind, that's not good. You add in the fact Kirk Cousins, just really not a good outdoor quarterback. He's got 6 touchdowns versus 5 interceptions in 4 road games, under 80 quarterback rating. I just think there's too many factors here to really like the over. I mean, 45.5, it's still a decent total. I think you'll actually see this get down to 45, potentially even under by game time. And just a quick note, how good are the Vikings running this year? I like at this point, I might bet them to win the Super Bowl. Now they're getting Josh Allen injured of all things. They feel like the Rams of last year. I just wanted to throw that out there because again, the Vikings, getting a very good draw here with Allen dealing with an issue here.
Yeah. Did you see how shredded Kirk Cousins is with his shirt off? You see that when he was on the plane?
I mean, I could do that.
I was pretty impressed, man. He looks like Ned Flanders when he's got like his short sleeve button down shirts on at press conferences. They ripped his shirt off on a plane with a golden chain. I'm like, damn, dude. All right. He hits the gym. Pierce, I know you're that shredded as well. Do you want over or under this total?
I'm going to go under. I don't know anyone could make the over bet. I mean, maybe if you have some inside information and you know that actually Allen is completely healthy, but for me, it looks like he's not close to 100%. He probably shouldn't be out there. They might have to take it easy. They might have to rearrange their play calling. He is a player that wings it downfield, that scrambles often. And if you're going to tell me he's not in good health, then you kind of need him for the long run.
Yep.
At the very least, you're going to change your play calling. And you're going to be a lot more conservative. You're going to be in his ear saying, hey, maybe you don't need to run for it on 3rd down. We'll go back out there and get him next time. I just don't see the points coming from that side. And then if you look at the Vikings, Jeff talked about maybe they are for real. They are winning every game and hardly losing any. But if you look at against the spread, they're 3-4-1, which tells me the sportsbook knows exactly who these guys are. In terms of margin of victory, it's pretty much right on 0.5. They know exactly who they are. And so if the sportsbook says they're 5.5 dogs against a Bills team that has an injured quarterback, then I can't expect much from Minnesota this weekend. Look, the sportsbook knows who they are, and if they think that they're not going to, be close against an injured Bills team, then they're not going to score points. Josh Allen's not going to score points. Seems like a clear under to me.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows what the hell to expect when Jeff Saturday makes his coaching debut with the Colts, who face the Raiders in Vegas, where Josh McDaniels' seat is heating up. We know the narrative there with Josh McDaniels and the Colts as well. And Saturday having no head coaching experience at the college level or NFL level. Indianapolis averages just 9 points a game on the road, Pierce. You going under this 42.5 point total?
If Jeff Saturday can get a coaching job just like that, then really, I mean, there's hope for all of us out there.
There really is. I was a coaching minor at UCF too. Like, honestly, I should have gotten that job before this dude.
Got to throw your name in the hat. Maybe one of these days it'll work out for it, as ridiculous as that sounds. But I mean, we've seen it before. We've seen, what was it, Nate Millen or whatever, the TV guy that got the GM job at Detroit a couple years ago. Anything can happen. We can all dream. You know what can't happen is they're not going to go over in this game. No one's scored any points here. The Colts have gone under in all but one game this season. They're averaging 14. I know you gave out their road number, whatever it is, but on the season, it's 14.7 points per game, the worst in the league. Sam Ellinger, he did go for 200 yards in his first game, but I think that dream has collapsed, so we can't really go with anything there. The Colts aren't going to score. Colts play halfway decent defense. The Raiders were going over there for a while with, I think, 5 in a row, but they've gone under the last 2. They have not looked that good. Maybe the Raiders score some points, but the Colts are absolutely not going to. This would be an under.
Dude, Jeff, like real talk, Josh McDaniels, I know that the word out of Las Vegas, they're going to have patience with this guy, but if he loses to Jeff Saturday, who's never coached a freaking game in his life, like he may be fired after Sunday.
It's not a good look.
Yeah.
If the Raiders lose this game, that's for sure. This is kind of a big game for the Raiders. If any team is going to drag the Colts into hitting an over, it is actually going to be the Raiders doing something ridiculous, much like they did against Arizona early in the year when they got up 20-0 and somehow lost the game in the fourth quarter. So, look, I don't think this is a game where you necessarily need to take a contrarian stance. The most likely scenario is here the Colts are just terrible. And if they do somehow get a lead, their defense is just going to take over anyways. Like the Colts defense is actually, it's pretty good. It's been good in spots for them. That's not the issue. So like if the Colts somehow do get a lead, their defense could just shut down the Raiders. If the Raiders get a lead, you've got to think this team is just going to be smothering, Ellinger or whoever out there. Maybe they'll put Nick Foles in and save the day. Who knows? But, there's just, I wanted to make some kind of contrarian argument here that this one will be surprising and the Colts will rally on Saturday. I don't really see that happening. And there's certainly better spots to spend your money here. I think the under's fine. And again, like this is a total I fully expect to move potentially down even into like the 41, the 41 total range and by kickoff.
And then they got the play caller for the Colts too. It's going to be the 30-year-old kid. He's going to literally be like playing Madden out there, dude.
I'm putting my application in after the show.
All right, let's go quick on this last one, guys. Lowest total currently on the board, 38.5 in Nashville with the Titans hosting the Broncos. So over or under that, Jeff?
All right, this is where we're going to get a little crazy. We are going to go over this one. These two teams, a combined 3-13 to the over this year, but we're going over here. This is going to be, we're going to make it 4-13 after this game. Look, you've got Russell Wilson. Finally, all the receivers are healthy. Dulcich is back. His whatever is hurting him, hamstring, shoulder, not getting enough hydration from his magic water. That's all going to be fixed after the bye week, the long rest. Wilson has looked a little bit better of late. I think that the passing offense can get it going here. The Tennessee secondary, not good. And I also think that you can run on the Denver Broncos. We've seen teams do it before. Even if it's Malik Willis back, it's an extra week of prep for him. If it's Tannehill, that's probably more stability anyways. I think Derrick Henry has looked really good. I actually like the over here. I think this total is too low. I think that the Broncos probably push this into the 40 range.
Okay. Do you agree with that, Pierce?
Yeah, let's go with the over. Derrick Henry should be able to move the ball against a bad rush defense from Denver. And Tennessee should win this game. They're the much better team. And then you get Russell Wilson kind of, not necessarily in garbage time, but he'll be airing it out, taking chances. I don't think it's going to be a very good performance from Wilson. Those are probably never going to happen again. But they'll get some points on the board. 38.5. That's pretty disrespectful to Russell Wilson. You love to see it. And so that's going well.
I can't wait for that. I already want next season to start. The Russell Wilson comeback here. Wow, it's going to be great.
He's retired. Dude. He's done for. Go out with some
he's dignity. Washed. He's washed, bro. He's done.
Yeah, he had quit. He's got the Subway commercials to do, guys. Come on. I'm on my – I can't wait for the next one.
It's still giving everybody nightmares.
I love that commercial.
All right. We know you do. Pierce, you could go to Subway now. Your job here is done. Jeff, we're going to talk some golf with you coming up in this show. Finally. But first I know, right? You'll get to talk about Russell Henley. I said Russell Wilson. Anywho, everyone's like, where the hell have been the Gojo guys? This is Wednesday. It's a tradition unlike any other. Well, they're busy interviewing Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman right now. So they decided to turn their back on me, on the sweat, on our entire team. And we will remember that. So keep an eye out for that episode following Notre Dame's upset win over Clemson. Should be a good one. But a new Golic at Smitty also dropped today. And Mike Jr. filling in for his dad with Smitty. So here's a little bit of their conversation about the crazy weekend that just went down around college football.
Georgia's world now, right?
Yeah.
Like we live in a Kirby Smart and Georgia dominated world. Jess, I'll never forget. I think it was the year after they played Alabama in the national title game and lost to the Tua game that they played Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl. I want to say it was in between that national title appearance and their ultimate national championship win last year. And it was the first time I called a Georgia game. And I was going through the depth chart, and you get the game notes for all these teams, and you see the depth chart, and you're reading up on everyone's background. And you went through 3 deep at every position, and it's former top 10 player at this position, former 5-star at this position, such and such player of the year. The depth of talent there is unlike any place in the country right now. Kirby Smart has a machine built there, and we got a reminder of that big time on Saturday night against that Tennessee team. Like, you're going to really have to go out there and earn that thing against them. And as much as it looked like they were playing with their food at points during the season, they're learning some of the lessons that the Nick Saban big bad last 2 decades of college football teams learned. Like, hey, you're the hunted all the time now. You're getting everyone's best stuff all the time now, and you got to be ready for that. But on the high end of it, again, being ready for those games, they're just built different right now. They lost one of their best defensive players before that game in Nolan Smith, and it did not matter. They came out and absolutely steamrolled. So it's them against the world at this point, I think.
All right. So after a large, thick slate last night around the NHL. We've got just 4 games on the menu today. RotoWire's Paul Bruno and AJ Scholes, kind enough to join us, dishing out some DFS and sportsbook plays here. We are going to start with, I know we're talking hockey. We'll do golf next. Thank you. We're going to start with who the best DraftKings play is tonight on this slate, AJ. So this could be a value. This could be a top price guy. I mean, you could take this in any direction you want. Just maybe your favorite player.
Yeah, so the Wild are the biggest favorites on the slate tonight. They haven't scored a goal in 2 straight games, though. So that's a little concerning, but I think you stick with Minnesota. It's a good matchup here. There's been some back and forth on whether or not Kirill Kaprizov is going to face a suspension for last night's injury with Drew Doughty. So just in case, I'm going to look at Matt Zuccarello tonight instead, coming in cheaper anyways at 7,500. I think the Wild are set to bounce back in a big way. On the value side, quickly, I do like Brock Besser for Vancouver tonight at 4,900. Picked up his first assist in his, picked up an assist in his first game back from injury. Has a decent matchup facing Montreal here.
All right, Paul, start us off here in the DFS side, man.
You know what? I'm really tempted with the Kaprizov tonight against the worst defensive club in the league. Anaheim's given up almost a touchdown every game, it seems. So you got to watch for the results of what might be a phone hearing or whatever after the match penalty that he drew last night. So if he plays, I might go with him. But if he doesn't, I'm going to pivot to the Carolina Panthers visit to Florida, where the Panthers look very vulnerable after Matthew Tkachuk joined Aaron Ekblad on the injured list. I also don't like the way Bobrovsky's playing for them of late. That news should have the Hurricanes fired up, and I'll be using a couple of their top wingers tonight in the lineup. Andrei Svechnikov for 7,100 and Martin Nescash for 6,600. They lead the shot parade for this team that runs up a big total on the clock, and I think that could be the case today. And if it happens, I think a big score line is going to show up on the Carolina side of things.
All right, Paul. So with this being a 4-game slate, I mean, let's get the people a bet for each game. Carolina at Florida. What's the move here? Doesn't sound like you're very high on Florida right now.
That's correct. So I'm doubling down here. And you know, even though Ranta's in goal for Carolina, I still think that Bobrovsky's struggles give the edge to Carolina as well in the nets. So I think they're going to pepper him with the usual shot volume, and I'll take the visitors plus 115 on the money line in this one.
Okay. What do you want here, AJ?
Well, I do want to point out that it's actually going to be Spencer Knight between the pipes here tonight for Florida, which makes me a little more hesitant there. I think it's 2 really evenly matched teams. And so I'm going to check out the 60-minute line on the DK Sportsbook here and go with draw at plus 340. Obviously a big ask to have it go to overtime here, but they're just so evenly matched. I do think if that's a little bit too risky for you, I somewhat agree with Paul. I think the over is in play even at minus 130.
Yeah, the over is 5-1 across the past 6 outings for the Panthers here too. How about Vancouver visiting Montreal? Both teams on the second half back-to-back, so maybe the home team has the edge here, AJ?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe if the home team wasn't Montreal, you'd consider them having the edge here. But the other factor here is that the Canucks saved Thatcher Demko to play tonight. So they're going to be using their starting goalie most likely against Samuel Montembeault from Montreal, who's their backup. So I don't like the money line here at minus 155. It's too heavy. So again, going back to the 60-minute line to get some value here, I go Vancouver in that spot. You can get them for plus 105. Just have to hope they finish things off in 60 minutes there. And then if you're looking for maybe some goal props in this one, I think Horvat and Kuzmenko at plus 145 and plus 260 as anytime goal scorers make a lot of sense as well.
All right, both teams going to have some tired legs in this game. That could really hurt the defense, Paul.
You know what? I asked you guys to clip and save the nice things I said about Montreal. I'm not going to double down 2 days in a row. That's just not happening. So Vancouver's my pick as well. I think they've got the edge right down the line. If remember back in the day when they used to put the check marks on one side of the ledger on the football broadcast, well, I'll do that very quickly. It's check, 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 forward, defense, and in net for Florida tonight, for Vancouver tonight, I should say, with Demko getting the nod over Samuel Montembeault. Again, I like the visitors, but this time I'm going to take him on the puck line at plus 170. Look, you know I can't go twice in a row for Montreal.
All right, here we go. Battle of 2 playoff teams that have gotten off to To rough starts. Yeah, AJ, I see you already, man. Pittsburgh at Washington. Can your Penguins end their 7-game winless streak? The hell's going on here, dude?
Look, I'm seriously considering just betting the Caps so that I won't feel bad when the Penguins lose this one. I'll at least have made some money off of it. They've looked really bad of late. But look, I think for me, I would double down on Ovechkin in this one. You know, Tristan Jarry's been suspect at best. It looks like he's going to get the start here. So take Ovechkin to score a goal. You can get that at plus 110. And then you can get him to at plus 100 for at least a power play point. 5 of his 8 goals to start the year have been scored with the man advantage. So I think you double down. He's going to get a power play goal in this one, and you get double the value out of him.
8 goals on the year. The great 8 has goals in 3 straight games, 5 of his last 6. By the way, 106 shy from tying Wayne Gretzky's all-time record as well. Paul, what's the bet you like in this one?
Well, we know it's a rivalry game, and I'm really surprised that AJ is taking the high road here and not looking like a homer. I'll stay away from who's going to win, but I think both teams are really having a lot of trouble keeping pucks out of their own nets, and the star power has really delivered on both sides. Ovi's having a great start, so is Crosby. I think they're both going to pile up a lot of offense with a lot of their friends tonight, so I'm taking the over of 6.5 here.
All right, finally, the bet for Minnesota and Anaheim, AJ. What's yours?
Well, as I mentioned, I think the offense in Minnesota is going to explode tonight. I think it's a good matchup for them. Like I said, they've been held off in 2 straight. So I like the Wild on the puck line here. It comes in at plus 155 value. I think you consider grabbing the over at minus 105 and really capitalizing on what should be a big offensive game for the Wild.
Okay, Paul, do you agree with that?
I'm right with AJ. The same narrative as the Caps and Pens game applies, only worse. There's going to be a lot of high-end skill on display in this one. We expect Anaheim to leak defensively, and they have allowed over 4.5 goals against per game. That's almost lacrosse numbers they're giving up. Minnesota, though, has surprisingly been right there amongst the worst in this category this year, and that's a big surprise. Throw in the fact that they're using a winless backup on the road, I think, tonight. And I like the over to fall early in this one.
Nice, dude. Yeah, Anaheim scored at least 3 goals in 5 straight games, a trend that boys feel should continue tonight. Dudes, we'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Good stuff. We're wrapping up the show with PGA Tour Price Check. Len and Jeff will join us after our final break. So just 2 events remain in the PGA Tour's fall season. We're at the Houston Open this week, where you could see on your screen some of the more pricier selections available. There's no defending champion this year because Jason Kokrak is long departed for LIV. Scotty Scheffler, runner-up from a year ago in the field, looking to build off his best finish of the fall. It was a T3 at Mayakoba. And Jeff Ulrich's Russell Henley enters the week, riding momentum too, winning last week for his first tour title since Houston in 2017. Congratulations, Jeff. We haven't been able to talk to you about it all week.
Thank you. I mean, 4 years of long, hard work of me just clicking Russell Henley's name every week finally paid off. Great times. Yes.
Good. Good. Great. I'm glad that you're here. Len Hochberg of RotoWire. I'm glad you're here too. Let's price check some salaries here for the Houston Open. So your favorite golfer north of 10 grand this week. There's some big names to choose from, Len. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, I mean, Scheffler looked great last week. He shot a 62 on Sunday to move into, as you mentioned, a tie for third. He needed solo second to catch Rory McIlroy for number one. He still has another chance this week. He has to win the Houston Open. I'm still a little wary of his putting. They were putting last week on the Paspalum greens. It's not a true indication of what we're going to see week in and week out on the PGA Tour. So I'm still going to be in a little bit of a hold pattern on Scheffler. And, not to, rain on what Jeff did. It was a great call. But Russell Henley won on Paspalum as well. And Bermuda is a whole nother thing. I like the other guys better. Burns, Finau, Matsuyama, especially like Burns. He's finished second here. Finished seventh here, 2 years running, which makes sense. It's just a good fit for him. He has a lot of good weeks, a lot of bad weeks. It's still a little bit dicey for me that someone who's been around this long, a few years, is still having a lot of ups and downs, unlike the other top tens, but he's proven he plays well here. He's my favorite play in the tens.
Yeah, Jeff, Memorial Park has Bermuda green. Sam Burns loves it, man. Isn't he best friends with Scheffler too? Aren't they like buddies?
Yeah, no, you're right. I think they played together in the President's Cup. I think they may have played together at the Zurich too. I don't know. Definitely they were at the President's Cup pairings. So yeah, they're buddies.
All right. Yeah. So Sam Burns, I haven't heard many people mention his name this week. Is he your guy over 10K?
It's a good setup for Burns. This is a very comparable setup to the Valspar, the Copperhead, where he's won twice, and he's done well here. But I'm going to go with Finau at 10,400. When you think of a long, tough par 70, this is like Tony Finau's wheelhouse. Everyone's mad at him at missing the cut last week. He was kind of like the sharp pick, to be contrarian, but he hadn't played in a while. And again, we're getting a big change in venue here. Where does Tony Finau pop up? He pops up on tough, long golf courses. He's got multiple top fives at the Valspar. He's top 10 Colonial and TPC San Antonio in Texas. You just look at what he's done in 2022. It's not a player we need to worry about anymore. He's around the green game, gains some strokes almost every week. The putting's far more consistent. He's up there in those categories with the elite players. I think he really bounces back this week. I kind of agree with Len about Scheffler. Not sure if I really want to trust him at 11.5 just because of the way he's been putting. I think Finau is actually the play here. I like going down to him. You save a lot of cash, and he is just very low sentiment this week. Not going to get much ownership in those big GPPs. So, if he does take off again, you get really good leverage on the field.
Maybe chalk up last week to just a little bit of rust. Let's go to the 9K range. Jeff, best play for someone who's going to cost $9,000 or more.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to go back to Sahith Theegala at 9,300 this week. Just a terrific all-around player. And again, when you're really diving into where these players play well, I just can't emphasize enough how big a change in course this is. Theegala, top 5 or top 10 at the Valspar, T5 at Muirfield Village. These are tough golf courses. This is kind of where he's shown up as well and done some of his best work. He's not a player necessarily spikes in any category. He's not the longest hitter. He's not the best all around the green player, but he's good at everything. He's got a strong tee to green game. I think that people have kind of forgot about him. He played really well over in Japan, shot that 10 under par on the weekend, moved himself up into a top 10, came back and really bombed out at the CJ Cup. But you know what? That plane ride it just killed Keegan. It killed Ricky from the week before. So you just got to cross that off. He's coming in well rested to a venue that he's played before, in a venue that I think suits him well. I think Theegala is a very good upside play this week.
Who stands out to you in this price range, Len?
Yeah, there are a few guys I like in the nines, 4 guys specifically, and Theegala is not one of them, but I do think he merits attention. Aaron Wise is just playing great. He's 9,900. He's almost in the tens. It's a fair price. That's what he's doing. He's played well here. His putting is really so much better this year. And that's the difference for him. And the same with Emiliano Grillo at 9,100. 2 great ball strikers, vastly improved their putting. Wise much better right now than Grillo on the greens. And in between Taylor Montgomery, this guy is just putting well everywhere, even last week on the Paspalum greens. And we've seen him putt well on Bermuda. You've got to make a lot of putts in Houston, not for birdies. You've got to make a lot of par putts. Remember, 10 under last year, 13 under the year before. And also like Maverick McNeely, who already has 2 top 10s already in the fall season. These 4 guys, I could see putting a lineup with 3 of them in there. Maybe not Wise at 99, but the other 3, you could still be under $28,000 and still be able to fill a $50,000 cap pretty nicely. Remember, a lot of the 6,000s will make the cut, just like last week. 132 in the field, more than half will make the cut.
Well, Len, I'm counting about 10 golfers priced between 8 and 9 grand. Who is the play in this range?
Yeah, as much as I like the 9s, I really struggled in the 8s to find really anyone. I like the one I like best, and best is not the best word, is Davis Riley at 8,400. He has, his stats are all over the place. He happens to be 17th in strokes gained approach, which of course is a big, an important stat, which I like, but everywhere else, he's just all over the map. Finished in the top 30 here last year. The thing that I'm keeping an eye on with Davis Riley, he's 67th in the world, wants desperately to get into the top 50 by year's end. He's got this week to do it. I don't know if he's going to play the RSM, but I presume he will if he still needs to get into the top 50.
All right, Jeff, who's playing well in this range?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with Davis Riley. I think he's probably the best upside play in this range. And, just like Thigala, it's a young player who a little bit all over the map, but very good, just really talented. He'll break through eventually. I'll also talk about Adam Hadwin here, though, at 8,300, because, Hadwin is just like a consistent player who he hasn't done a ton lately, but he's made 7 straight cuts now. The putter's really working for him. And when he gets that around the green game and putting going, this is just a player who can kind of pop anywhere. And he's not a big hitter off the tee, but he has done his best results, quite frankly, or a lot of his good results have come at tougher golf courses. Obviously won at Copperhead, but he was top 10 at the US Open and at Copperhead, Valspar, and TPC San Antonio. Like basically 3 of the toughest golf courses we've seen this year. Now he's got really good confidence in his putter, gaining strokes with that club all through the fall. I think he's actually a really sneaky play this week. I really like Hadwin. Obviously like Davis Riley too, but you could pair those 2 guys together if you want to stack players in the 8K range. It's a little like, I think that there's a lot more variance in the 8K range this week, like Glenn alluded to, but I like Hadwin. I like Riley. That's definitely where I would go.
Jeff, who's the value play under 8 grand?
Yeah, I mean, the low 7K range, there's definitely a distinct difference. I mean, like I think all the guys have flaws and they're all just, the missed cut rate really spikes up once you get under 7,400. But I think Wyndham Clark is a player at 7,900 who you can actually pretty much rely on. He gained over 6 strokes ball striking in his last start. You look at the type of profile you want to target here at Houston. It's a long 7,400 yard par 70. Clark is big off the tee. Gained 5 strokes off the tee alone in his last start. He did not putt well at the CJ Cup. He only finished T29 there. But if his putter had shown up, I mean, my goodness, probably would have finished top 10 and everyone would be talking about him. He's an elite putter, though. I mean, he's top 20 in strokes gained putting. We know that Wyndham Clark can spike with that club. I mean, he's done it before. So I like the way he's coming in. Like Thigala, I mentioned, he's rested. And I don't think many people are going to be playing him this week. So 7,900 is not an extreme value, but in the 7K range, he's probably my favorite play.
Yeah, how low are you going here for value, Len?
Well, I always like to go way into the 6s just to give people an option, but I'll start in the low 7s and 7,300. Davis Thompson, the rookie, big strapping kid from Georgia, hits the ball a ton and a pretty good putter, which is a good fit for this course and probably most courses. But he already has 2 top 12s in the fall season. The one concern, he hasn't played in about a month, which is very rare for a young guy, a Korn Ferry grad. They all like to get out so much and play in the fall before the fields get much tougher in after the new year. So but I haven't seen anything on an injury, but I'm very interested to see him this week and again next week in Georgia at the RSM. And too quickly in the 6s, 6,700, Austin Smotherman, 6,500, Ben Taylor, looking for them both to make the cut. They've made most of their cuts this fall, putt pretty well.
All right. Let's go pick to win. Go pick to win the Houston Open. Jeff Ulrich, who is your guy?
I'm going to go with Thigala this week. I mean, what have we seen from him this year? Just multiple close finishes. He's played, better than I think people realize in the fall. Again, had that really solid weekend at Japan. I think he builds on it here, and he wins in an event where I think it's going to be really close, tight scoring, and he'll prevail.
All right, Len Hochberg.
Yeah, I like Burns, and Burns, like I said, he has some bad weeks, but when he has a lot of good weeks, and he hits it a ton, and he's a good putter, and that's a good combination for this week. And you're right, he is best buds with Scotty Scheffler, and wouldn't it be fun to see them dueling down the stretch? And Scheffler needs to win to get to number one in the world. Burns would like nothing more than to keep his buddy from regaining the top spot.
All right, dudes. And also Tiger Woods just announcing he's going to be in the field for December's Hero World Challenge. So December, Tiger season. So the Hero World Challenge, December 1st to 4th. It's got the match on December 10th. And then December 18th and 19th, that PNC Championship.
Tiger comeback in 2023.
Dude, we haven't seen him play since the Open in July.
I'm up for that.
Me too, dude. I need it. And I think Lenny's been caddying for his son, right? Some tournament he's been playing in.
Yes. He has. It all of a sudden makes golf a little interesting in December when there's nothing going on.
Yep, absolutely. Going to put this sport on his back, like in the same spot where it's been for decades now. Guys, you two are awesome. Jeff, we'll talk more golf tonight on a 5 o'clock Wednesday edition of Slate. We'll talk some more NFL as well. So we'll see everyone then. We're back in studio for the Sweat tomorrow morning. Thanks for hanging out.